Good morning, welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. My name is Mark. I have Jason on camera with me this morning. Wiem is in final control, and welcome to this little corner of Africa with a really beautiful dawn. The dawn chorus of the birds is ringing kind of, when the trees are wet. We've had a bit of rain. When the trees are wet like this, there's a sound that just is different. Somehow it's a clearer sound, there's a clearer crispness to the air. It's a really beautiful morning. There was some lovely pink sky. Different types of cloud moving in. We've got different layers. There was rain up until we almost got to camp this morning, so we drove in some rain to begin with. We're up on Zoe's Road having a look out across the whole of expanse of Djuma, actually. Believe it or not, that far ridge that we can see is actually the ridge where Cheetah Cutline is, looking to the east. Black-bellied korhaan, black-bellied bustard making its noise. Let's go for a drive. Join me for the next few hours. We're going to be driving live through the African bush. See what we can find for you in terms of fauna and flora. Oh, I wasn't watching.
We're good.
We're good. There's the back of the castle there. Nice way to start a day. Fresh. We just the rain stopped a long time ago. We just had made our own rain. Bumped the tree and dumped all this water on us. I guess I'm not altogether there this morning yet. Here, not there. Everywhere. Followed some elephant tracks into Djuma, so he might be somewhere where the road was washed out mostly, I suppose, by the rain, but his tracks were quite fresh, just walking straight down the entrance road of Voyatella, and he's somewhere on the property. Haven't seen an elephant in a couple of days, so I'd like to try and get hold of him at some point. Not too sure which side of the road he left the road. Well, it looks like he might have might have even crossed this road now. Be nice to see if he's here. I want to just stop in at the hyena den. It's a little bit early, they might still be out. Only the one vehicle up and running at the moment. Scott and I are going to be taking it in turns each day. It's the best we can bring you. We try and make up for the fact that we are the one vehicle's out. Bad time of the year to have things go wrong when everybody's closing up for Christmas and the weekend. Last weekend before Christmas. Here's a rare sight in the road. I don't know if we'll wait for it to cross the road, because that might take some time. This is the giant African land snail. I've shown you an empty shell before. I can bring one along again another time. I think it's in the jigger. Probably about, so this one is a medium-sized snail. It's actually quite small. It's only about 4 inches from the tip of its snout to the tip of its tail. Maybe a bit more actually, because that shell is at least 3 inches long. I think one of those 2-mile long ore trains that you get, that you have to wait forever to cross it at a level crossing, is faster than a snail crossing a 2-track road. I'm just going to make sure that I don't drive over it with the wheels, straddle it. And here are the elephant tracks. He walked down this way. Looks like might be the same individual. That's good news. Unless he's gone so far south. I was hoping to follow up on that young leopard this morning. We possibly could still do that. But with the weather that we've had overnight, it's not going to be easy finding his tracks. Unless he's moving this morning. And if anyone has any news of what might have been seen, excuse me, what might have been seen on the camera on Gari Dam, Uyapela Dam, Djuma Dam, different names for the same place. The elephant might have been walking a long time ago, because his tracks looked fresh, and his dung had already started to be flattened by some of the scarabs. So it might have been a good few hours ago, in which case he could be quite far by now. We need to go and have a look closer towards Treehouse Dam, maybe that area. Good. Not looking like anybody's home. I wonder if they're even using this den still. You can hear oxpeckers, maybe it's oxpeckers here in a tree that maybe they're nesting here. I think this is the tree. So I'm looking at the shape of the tree. I think this is the tree Scott found them nesting. Picked up the whiff of something not very pleasant. Okay, let's move along. Too much happening here. Hey, oxpecker. Where'd the hyenas go? I remember there was a den on, rather an entrance to the den on this eastern side of the termitarium, but it's all closed up. That must have closed up, I guess, in floods, the heavy rains of 2012 and 2013 respectively. Sometimes they sleep down here in the drainage line, but that's mostly when there are muddy pools down there. Nothing now. Okay. I wonder where my binoculars went. I think I must have left them in the other vehicle again. That's not good. So lost without them, and yet I think it's twice now I've forgotten them, and normally they're the first things that I make sure I've got in the morning. There's a tree frog nest here in the dip as we're going through this dip. It sadly is not going to go anywhere because this pool of water that normally fills up here is not, there's no water in it at all. And those tadpoles that are likely to hatch pretty soon. Closest we've been, I think, to the foam nest of the tree frog. An incredible feat of engineering for a frog. They whip up a type of mucus into this foam as they're mating. As they create the foam, she deposits her eggs and he deposits the sperm. And it stays very moist inside, the eggs encased in this. It's almost like egg white beaten to a froth when you're making meringues. And the outer casing tends to dry, almost like that foam insulation stuff that you get. And then retains its moisture on the inside. And as the tadpoles hatch and start swimming around, the foam starts condensing inside and it forms droplets that break through the outer crust, the dry crust, and drip into the water below. But I think these frogs were a little misguided, unless they were highly optimistic that we're going to get heavy enough rains that'll fill this little pond. Morning, Michael. Thanks for the question. Michael's asking if one can tell the difference between predator and prey by the color of the eyes with a flashlight at night. To some extent you can. I mean, generally speaking, Michael, the predator has eyes relatively close together, forward-facing eyes. So invariably when you see a predator, you're seeing two eyes fairly close together, as opposed to generally one might see only one eye of the prey species, because the prey species, the eyes are on the side of the head. Greater field of view, as opposed to the predator that needs to hone in on its prey in front of it. But yeah, I think generally the prey species are more of a greenish color. The tapetum, this is what is reflecting, is actually a layer of light enhancing cells that sit behind the retina, back of the eye, that intensify the amount of light going into the eye. And that is what we see reflective in animals' eyes. We as humans don't have it. It's called the tapetum lucidum. Tapetum, however it is pronounced, or however one wants to pronounce it. I've never really heard any specific version. But the tapetum reflects light in a bit of a greenish color, I'd say, with prey species, more of a yellowish color with predators. Spiders also reflect, frogs to some extent, birds, some insects. I suppose most insects would if you could get a direct enough angle of the light. I've noticed with spiders, especially because they're so small, if you have the light source very, very close to your eye, you can find spiders, and especially wolf spiders, ground-dwelling hunting spiders. Not so much the web-spinning spiders, because their eyes are more rudimentary. They don't need eyes for finding prey as much as they need eyes just to tell light and dark and sort of make out objects around them. Spiders, main senses of the web-spinning spiders, their main sense are the various different types of hairs all over their body and along their legs that act as taste, smell, feel, hearing, all the senses rolled into, well, not rolled into one, but to the various different types of hairs that the spider would have on its body. So the hunting spiders reflect, and it's generally all a very light greenish color. Off on tangent when I talk about things. I've been busy in the mud wallow. Morning, boys. A few Impala rams. Bush is looking beautiful. So bright and green this morning. Kind of fresh green. Got two falcons. What they are. Very cold little oxpecker, cold and damp, all fluffed up. Suppose waiting for something to come by. We're waiting for some sunshine to warm it up maybe. A little unusual. Oxpeckers are a benefit to most of the large animals. Oh, I suppose warthog are not that big, so they sit on warthog too. But they can prove to be a benefit to the animals that play host to them. How about oxpecker? I hope you're feeling better. But they can also be a little bit of a pest. The symbiotic relationship that exists or has existed over the years is very interesting in it being a perfect example of I suppose a mutual benefit relationship, and yet there are times when an animal might have an injury that an oxpecker can be a pain, because they'll keep the injury, they'll keep a wound open, either to attract flies or to attract fly larvae. Sometimes when sepsis sets into things, I think they would probably also even nourish themselves on the blood of an animal, but I can't be sure of that. I've seen oxpeckers doing things that look like they're worrying an injury so much that it continually bleeds, either on hippos or buffalo. I suppose the animal gets itself coated in mud and it can help to heal. Mud is a healing thing. Morning, Linda, California. Are there any or many tarantulas in the Sabi Sands or in the Djuma area? Yes, there are. And no, there aren't. There are the equivalent of tarantulas here in Africa. We have a group of spiders known as the baboon spiders. They are the same group of spiders as the tarantulas, big, what we call ground-dwelling megalomorphs. The megalomorphs are the old world spiders, the ground hunting spiders. I suppose they're not always on the ground. You get some rock-dwelling spiders too that are megalomorphs. They grow about as big as my hand. They live for about 20 years as females. They are maybe not as big as some of the giant tarantulas of South America, but they're still big enough to eat some maybe small birds. I've seen baboon spiders eating frogs. Fairly large frogs, I might add, river frogs. But most of them are harmless. There's only one species that is of any consequence to humans, and that is a dwarf megalomorph, the dwarf baboon spider, which doesn't grow very big, a little bit bigger than a trapdoor spider perhaps. See, the old world spiders, the spiders that nature first invented, I suppose you could say, these ground-dwelling hunting spiders, they have their chelicerae, which essentially are their fangs and their hypodermic needles, that are downward facing, but when they're hunting, they lift up, they raise up and they strike their prey downwards. You've got the ground that acts as a barrier so that the fangs can penetrate their prey. They're rudimentary web spinners. They do have what we call spinnerets. They do produce silk being a protein. It's actually quite incredible how spiders produce it. These spinnerets at the back of them. With the old hunting spiders, the Magellomorphs, they only have one pair of spinnerets, and they only produce a few different types of silk from these spinnerets. And they use that either to line burrows or to create egg cases. What can you see? 2 duiker running, 1 duiker chasing another duiker. I think they also had, you see the lungs also play a big role in a spider's life. I think the old world spiders had 2 pairs of lungs, book lungs that is. And these duiker run in here. This is an area where Karula used to hunt duiker. I think as the insect world diversified and more flying insects emerged, there was a need for a different type of spider. So it's almost as though the New World spiders, what we call the New World spiders, was a sort of reinvention of the spider. And nature took a little bit away here and put a little bit there, so they took away 1 pair of book lungs and nature added a pair of spinnerets to produce even more types of silk. And those different types of silk are the very strands that make up what we know today as all the various different web spinning spiders. And very typically the biggest group of web spinning spiders are the orb web weavers, the ones that spin the wagon wheel shaped web. There are many different types of spiders that spin completely different webs entirely. Tent webs, scaffold webs, funnel webs. Nets, the ogre-faced spider, also known as the net throwing or net casting spider. Very interesting spider. It actually creates a net that is elastic, and it holds it in 2 pairs of legs and it throws the net over its prey while it's hanging down from a branch or something. Used to have a lot of those in Tanzania. Beautiful spiders, mostly harmless. In fact, most of the web spinning spiders are harmless. What makes them different from the Magellomorphs is that their fangs or their chelicerae are sideways facing, so they've got to open them wide and bite their prey, because if they were to strike when they were on a web, if they had to strike downwards like a hunting spider, it would probably just push the prey away as opposed to being able to grasp it and inject the venom. We'll come back up to Treehouse Dam. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe we'll just do a loop around Treehouse Dam quickly while we're here. Only 4. Maybe finding out if any of the little boys are around. The little spotted boys. Brief glimpse of sunshine this morning, and that morning light, when it comes in sideways against the wet vegetation, it's just a very special day. It's really beautiful. I hope the sun can burn open some of this cloud. Look forward to a day of game viewing. Yep, there we go, little boys' tracks on the road. Luckily we came this way, but the guinea fowl are on the road, so that here some time ago. We need to keep our ears open. Hello little ones, where's the leopard? Pity you can't see it, because then they'd be shouting and they'd point me in the right direction. But my guess is that the leopard came through here some time ago. Very clear tracks after rain, very clearly a wet leopard, or he's got wet feet. The way the sand is collecting on the fur around his feet, and every time he puts his foot down and he makes it, you can see his pad, his paw print. You can see where the sand was, the wet sand has sort of fallen off around his paw. Let's see if he maybe went straight up. I think he left the road already. I think he's gone back up towards Treehouse Dam. But lying quietly. There's a bit data. Morning, Mr. Dacre. Well, don't run too far, we want to look at you. It's really done, it's been spread open. Yeah, kitty, kitty, kitty. Yeah, kitty, kitty, kitty. Seen any more tracks of his. There's some buffalo. These are the boys that I suppose they're usually lying up in the water before I'm sure I might disturb them inadvertently. There's a few drops of rain coming. Just a few drops. The buffalo are going to be here, not going very far, staying close to the water. Don't get up, boys. I'm just going to, don't get up on my account, really. There's that old boy with a funny eye. I think it is. Two, three, five. Another 3 or 4 at the back there. 1, 2, 3 at the back there. But while the cat is on the move, oh please don't rain, don't follow this cat. It's starting to come down. You can see on the water of the dam now the rain is starting to fall. I'm thinking we might have to, it's not going to last long, but I think we might just have to go back to the shelter for now. suppose I could start making my way back to the shelter. The shelter of a place called the Little House on the Prairie. I can't imagine, it looks like a very light, very high sky. Imagine it's going to last very long, that it's going to be very wet. Do we need to cover anything? My books are okay, they're in a waterproof case. Camera. Maybe just my hat. Here's a one-horned impala. Here's an impala unicorn. That would have been quite an intense fight, breaking a horn down at the base of the skull. Probably would have been quite painful. Looks like it was probably a long time ago, because judging by the top of his head, there's no visible sign of the horn stump. Not much scarring either. That probably happened when he was young. I have a photograph of quite an amazing thing. I have a photograph of an impala with another impala's horn embedded in his neck. That was up in Tanzania. But it was embedded in the muscle of the neck. So the impala was still grazing, he was still moving around, and I'm sure that eventually the horn would have been rejected by the body. Perhaps a little bit of sepsis would have set in and it would have fallen out. But horns on impala, like all of our antelope here in Africa, are a lot different to the horns of the deer in the northern hemisphere, in that the horns of antelope are merely keratin covered bone, parts of the skull. So to actually break a part of the skull, to break a horn at the base or even at any length, and have it embedded in another impala's neck, I think just the force to do that must be incredible, beyond words. I was speechless when I saw that. And we had just seen two impalas sparring, and I was wondering if it wasn't one of them, because they were quite aggressive, these two. Neither one wanted to back down. Very seldom that nature allows animals to go that far, that two males will fight almost to the death, sometimes to the death, and it's only usually when neither one wants to give way, when both of them feel that they are the more dominant. And that photograph was the two impala rams sparring in front of this group of dozing elephant bulls, beautiful big bulls that were standing under this forest of tortillus trees. So leopard is somewhere, and he hasn't continued along this road. So he's somewhere in that drainage line behind us, below the dam, I'm sure. Just going to go and have a look on the main road where this road ends. There's a good place for tracks where two roads join, particularly these two roads carry quite a lot of traffic, animal traffic as well as human, but it's the animal traffic that I'm interested in. Hashtag Safari Live is our thread on Twitter. If you want to send questions to Twitter, or if you want to tweet a question, yeah, you know what I mean. Otherwise, questions at WildEarthTV. Let me know where you are living, where you're from. Jason, you remember the name of this light green stuff?
Vanilla.
Yeah. Vernonia. Vernonia is already flowering. It's only a few inches off the ground. Normally flowers only when it's a lot higher later in the season. But this rain that we've just had will shoot it up, I'm sure. Get a lot taller. See something? Morning, Sarah. Sarah, California. I think I know this Sarah in California. I don't know if we have any secretary birds. Yeah, not on Djuma, no. It's secretary birds need open grassland. You wouldn't really find secretary birds in this type of vegetation or in this type of habitat. They need the open grassland. They specialize in hunting in the open grasslands. They have very specially adapted feet for walking along the long distances each day in search for food. Very often using those very slim feet for stomping their prey to death in the form of snakes or lizards. Secretary birds are quite a unique bird of prey. They look like a vulture. They're one of those birds that's in a family on its own. Elephant cross here, that might even be with fun. It's funny rain, this is big drops that are falling, but not in the, it's not heavy enough to warrant having to shelter, but it's probably giving us a few spots on the lens. getting a bit damp. Maybe we should just sit under Jackalberry a bit. Thick enough crown to keep us a bit dry. Drier. Morning, Mel in California. Question about the roads. Maintenance of the roads is responsible, or rather the landowner who owns the property is responsible for maintaining his own roads, except for the main entrance roads, which is a sort of the main Sabi Sand body corporate. They are in charge of maintaining that section of the reserve. But these roads, the internal roads within a property, it's up to the landowners, in this case Djuma, and the staff at Djuma, up to them to maintain the roads. And it's especially some of the main roads, some of the roads that are used more frequently, for the comfort of the guest, but also it's important to maintain roads because of the maintenance of vehicles, but also, and I suppose also equally or more importantly, is to make sure that the impact on the environment is kept to a minimum. Roads can be put in the wrong place, especially because a lot of these roads have been here for decades and decades, and many times roads were put in place more for aesthetic reasons rather than for ecological impact reasons, to lessen the impact on the environment. And so roads have been and can be placed in a place that causes erosion or accelerates erosion or denusion of topsoil is probably one of the biggest worries, or one of the biggest dilemmas that we have on the planet at the moment, with the kind of deforestation that's taking place, at the rate of deforestation, and without tree canopies and cover, the topsoil getting lost, washed into rivers silting up coral reefs as they flow into the ocean. Why we have these bumps on the roads every now and then. They look like speed bumps, but they're actually there to push the water off of the road so that the water doesn't run all the way down the road. They're pushed off into mitre drains. Hello, U4. Same 4 we saw earlier when I saw the leopard tracks. Still haven't seen any more tracks. I wonder where he is. We're going to try again up towards Treehouse Dam, maybe do some more loops. Morning, Ron. Ron in Aberdeen. Is that Aberdeen, Scotland? Ron asking quite an important question, having mentioned the environment. Ron wants to know if I've seen any any effects of climate change, either here or up in the Timbavati, whether it be on vegetation or on the range of animals. Yes, I think I could say positively yes. But whether it is attributed to climate change or not, look, there's very definitely a change in the local climate in terms of the type, not only the amount of rainfall, but also in the frequency of rain, and that in itself has a vast effect on the vegetation. The maybe milder winter and the harsher summer, hotter summer, has another effect. Of course, the effect that it has on the vegetation has a direct impact on how the animals move or where they move accordingly. Great, over the last few years I've seen some of the trees coming into flower earlier and earlier, even into midwinter they start flowering already instead of spring. I've seen trees and bushes and shrubs flowering a lot earlier than ever before. Instead of many small showers over the season, occasionally we've been subject to only a couple of very, very heavy showers. Baker has been back, but he still won't let us see him running away. I wonder if this cat isn't just sleeping down here somewhere. Sky's lifted again, just as well we didn't make a dash for it. I think we can live with the few drops that we had. I've noticed birds arriving in some cases later than previous years. Normally you can almost set your clock to the arrival of some of the bird species. But that's only me, it's only one person's view of things, and that is not necessarily an accurate thing. I might have seen the first kingfisher 2 weeks later than the first kingfisher arrived, and I just happened to only see one so much later. There's a little brown bird here that is looks like a lesser honey-guide. Where's he gone? There it is, at the back there. Off it goes. Back to that bush. Okay, I'm going to try and reverse. I'd like to try and catch it on camera. Must be a reason why it's hanging around. There. Get it through there. It's not very close, so it's not going to be easy. That's the closest. Maybe I can try and go back a bit more, try and get a closer look without my binoculars. But it has a very distinct white inner tail rectrices, the feathers in the tail, in the middle of the tail. Let me see if we can go back a bit. It's not flying away, that's the good thing. The outer rectrices, not inner rectrices, the outer tail rectrices. Probably sitting on top of a tree now. Yeah, still a little bit fast. That's a very tiny little thing in your sort of lower left of the screen. Take the opportunity to try and listen, but there's nothing alarming. So this leopard is not moving anymore. Any bird? Okay. That's me again, boys. You've been fighting, you also broke a horn. I'm eye to eye with the buffalo. Fortunately, he's not looking down his nose at me, otherwise I'd be really worried, but it's still quite intimidating with him standing here looking straight at us, well, at me. It's like his eyes are boring into me. I can imagine him thinking, I might have a broken horn, but I've still got a boss on the top of my head. Good morning, Squire. Feeling a bit lopsided today? Mm-hmm. Oxpeck is determined to get something in the ear. Yeah, oxpeckers. No, not oxpeckers. Egyptian geese. That might be a Djuma waterhole. If anybody's got Djuma waterhole cam on, if you can let us know through questions at WildEarthTV or through the Twitter, you can let me know if you can see on the or hear anything at Djuma waterhole cam. Bye bye, buffalo. see you later, no doubt. Although they do have a reputation, buffalo, they are not always aggressive. They're not always out there to get you. Of course, it's a completely different matter being on foot. What I want to do is do another loop, a loopity-loop around the western side of Treehouse Dam onto Spum Road. Morning, weavers. Ryan in California. Now I've got to remember, what was that question again? I better get it back from the sea. It escaped me. There was all thoughts fled my mind when that buffalo was staring at me. Ah, yes, what car are we driving? Thanks. Jason remembered. I was eye to eye with a buffalo, kind of emptied all thoughts out of my head. He was wanting to know, what is a jigger and what car are we driving? This is a Land Rover. Land Rover, same company as Range Rover. Land Rovers are just fancy Land Rovers. This model is a 90, a Defender 90. Sadly, they're going to stop producing Defenders from next year, I think. The 90 refers to the wheelbase of the vehicle. It's a 90-inch wheelbase from axle to axle, as opposed to the long wheelbase models which are known as 110s. This particular model was built or made at a time when Land Rover was owned by BMW, and so it has a BMW engine, 2.8 fuel injected petrol engine, which is why I'm a little bit stumped with regards to the jigger, because I know Land Rovers. I've been driving Land Rovers. I do own my own Land Rover. 35 years old, going to be 36 next year, and I love Land Rovers. I think they're the best vehicles, by far the best vehicles for what we do. Built like a brick, got the aerodynamics of a brick, and it's perhaps that very square shape that is becoming passe. It's becoming out of fashion. I think also in terms of safety, they're not matching up to modern day safety standards. Perhaps, I don't know what the reasons are for them discontinuing the Defender series. Jigger is what we call it. Jigger is the name we gave it, Ryan. It's a local word. Jigger has got a number of meanings, but generally it is to turn. And because we drive around the bush, turning left, turning right, we jigger here and we jigger there. That's how it got its name, jigger jigger. It's not exactly slang, but I guess you could say it's a colloquialism, jigger. Actually, I think there's still a Facebook page. There's still a Jigger Facebook page from way back when. But this isn't Jigger. Jigger's sick. Jigger's 2.8 fuel injected BMW engine is sick. I think Land Rover nowadays is owned by the Indian company Tata. And Jaguar, I think so as well. I'm not too sure on the corporate side of things. Land Rover, Jaguar, same under the same umbrella. I think Ford even owned Land Rover for a while, and then about 10 years ago, or not quite that far, even Peugeot had a go at Land Rover. There were Peugeot engines, and then the Puma, the Land Rover Puma. What makes this such a fantastic vehicle is, one thing is its short wheelbase, which is a joy going off-road and through drainage lines. The maneuverability of the short wheelbase coupled with power steering. And for the bumps, instead of the leaf springs of the older model Land Rovers, there's the series Land Rovers, the more modern Land Rover, these have coil springs which just add to it. And then of course one of the best features of all is diff lock in four-wheel drive. Having a diff lock is very important, and to explain that to you, the differential is a set of gears in the middle of between your two wheels, in the middle of your car, because especially when you're going around a corner, your inner wheel is turning at a different rate to your outer wheel. So it's that differential in the way the wheels turn that requires these gears to make sure that, otherwise you would just wear through tires. But the differential is what also helps to drive those wheels. And in a four-wheel drive vehicle you have two differentials. You have a differential in front and at the back. In a front-wheel drive vehicle you only have a differential in the front. So that you have, from your gearbox, you have a set of gears that drive a shaft perpendicular to your axle to a differential that transfers that rotation of that shaft into the rotation of the axle through that set of gears that gives you drive. And in a four-wheel drive vehicle with two differentials you have two sets of shafts going to each axle. Hope I'm not boring you and confusing you, but just so that you know what we're talking about. Sometimes when you get stuck in a four-wheel drive vehicle like a Land Cruiser, or maybe I shouldn't mention names, but in a four-wheel drive vehicle that doesn't have differential lock, I think some Land Cruisers do, but what can happen is if one wheel is in the air or one wheel is in soft sand or snow or mud, you lose drive to your other wheel, because all the drive is then set to that wheel that is just spinning and spinning. And what a differential lock does is it sets the differential so that you don't have the difference in the spinning between the two wheels, and both wheels will spin, so it'll give you traction where you need it. But diff lock is a very dangerous thing to drive in, because you can't really be going, and it's only something that you can use in a straight line. You don't really want to be using diff lock or a differential lock first of all on a tar road, on a surfaced road, but also you don't want to be turning corners with it, because once again you'll wet through the rubber in your tires, because your tires will be turning at the same rate, going around bends instead of at that differential rate, where one tire has to turn, one wheel has to turn quicker than the other to get around a bend. Hope that makes sense. But that's what I love about this car. My Land Rover is an old Land Rover, it doesn't have diff lock. You can have it fitted afterwards, but mine's a bit too old to bother with that sort of thing. saw something lying down in there. Looks like something. Buffalo carcass. I didn't even know there was one. Now I've seen it. Nothing eating on it.
That's right.
Ah, there I see the skull. Just the skin of a buffalo, obviously a little bit dry, but now in the wet there will be a host of things on the skin. To be moist, to be carcass beetles and millipedes and snails. When did that happen? Oh, caught a whiff of leopard. When? Do you know when it happened?
4 weeks ago.
Oh. Hayden and Peter's last week. Was that buffalo kill?
Yeah.
With the calf?
Yeah.
That's the Dacre. A little bit of a whiff of leopard scent marking, and it's almost a smell of wet cat. Morning, Ellen. Ellen in Arkansas. This is interesting. Well, different question. Do I feel more unease sitting with the likes of that buffalo staring me down, or a pack of wild dogs, or a single leopard? I feel most at ease being stared down by a human more than anything else. I suppose, Ellen, the buffalo, I'm not threatened at all by a wild dog. I've spent many hours on foot with wild dog in different countries, in Botswana, in Tanzania, here in South Africa, even at home. When wild dog have come through, I've been on foot with them. Is that the vehicle squeaking? Still doing loops around this dam because those leopard tracks went somewhere close by. It might have been a bird squeaking. Oh, just still smarting from that scorpion sting 2 days ago. My scalp feels funny, very tender, very tender to the touch. This elephant came past here, walked past Treehouse Dam, across the road on the other side of Treehouse Dam. But I haven't seen any other leopard tracks, which is strange, but just means that he didn't walk much further than from... Oh, what was that? Warthog. I think I've seen warthog coming out of this termite mound before. All I saw was a puff of dust. I'm going to have a look at that burrow up there. We can't see it. The camera's a little bit higher than me, so you might get a better view of it. But there, that big burrow up on top of or halfway up the termite mound, the warthog burrow, really goes deep into the termite mound, and few flies buzzing around the entrance, no spider webs, very good indicator of there being something in there, just as a matter of interest. Don't ever stand in front of a a hole in a termite mound, because the warthog, when they do come out, they come out barreling out with their dangerous ends. I just want to show you just to my right here where this hibiscus is growing. It's a freshly dug up termitarium. There's squirrels calling further up. That might be the cat. An aardvark been digging up termites here. You can see the exposed termite, the tunnels now being scoured by ants full of the odd termite that might come and try and close it up. Termites are going to, if there are any left. This isn't a termite mound. This is not the species of termite that we see, the termite mounds, particularly like this termite mound that the warthog is living in. This is a different type of termite. Most of it is underground. The little black mound termite known as macrotermes. No, not macrotermes, amitermes, I think. The snouted termite, or maybe that's trinervitermes. Yeah, that sounds more like it. Snouted termite. Very strange creatures. Ah, that's why the squirrel was shouting. There was a goshawk there flying away. Might have been the goshawk that the squirrel was complaining about. Wasn't very vocal. Wasn't highly agitated. It was just giving a warning more than anything else. And it subsequently stopped calling. The cat's got to be here somewhere. There's only so much looking we can do. We can't see him, we can't see him. Oh, now there's old lion tracks here. But this must have been the kahumas the other day. Ryan again. Morning, Ryan. Are there any high elevations here where we might get snow? No. We're a very, very low, flat world here. This part of South Africa that we're in right now is actually known as the low veld. Low veld, or I guess lowlands would be the equivalent. I mean, it's a South African word that we all understand. We take it for granted that the rest of the world understands the concept of veld. Veld meaning either just the bush or grassland. So you get bush veld and you get grass veld. Well, just normal veld. Back to the buffalo. I'm just going to cruise past the buffalo. I don't think I quite finished that other question about staring down, being stared down by the likes of you, Mr. B. I wouldn't call it unease. It's a healthy respect for what he's capable of. I can almost smack you on the bum. Excuse me. The same dude. They're starting to get active now. They're starting to move around to get some grazing. To the west of us is an escarpment. It's the Drakensberg Mountains, and higher up on to the escarpment is what we call the Highveld. And the Highveld occasionally gets snow. And then we have regions of the Drakensberg where the Drakensberg mountain range spreads further down south into southwest into the country. There are areas where the mountains are high enough, sort of, I suppose, in altitude going up higher than 6,000 feet. And part of that Drakensberg range is to get snow, and of course down in the Cape, different climate from there, yes. But here we're fairly close to the ocean, and we're only about 1,000 feet above sea level. And it is a subtropical climate, so there's never been snow here. Never. I doubt if there ever will be snow here. What up, Drongo? Scrawny little squirrel, where's your tail? I don't know much of a tail, this little squirrel. Eating a morning glory, that's interesting. Chewing their flower. Focus. That was meant for the ladies, squirrel. That's the first. I never knew squirrels were partial to morning glory flowers. This is our yellow tree squirrel. We don't have ground squirrels here, but they do spend a lot of time on the ground, our squirrels. What are you going to eat now? Commelina. Okay. Move on elsewhere. Morning, Tony on Twitter. How are we faring with the Ebola outbreak, and are we in an area that had an outbreak that was badly affected? No. Tony, we are in South Africa. South Africa is the bottom, right at the bottom of Africa. Ebola was up in sort of West Africa, Northwest Africa, probably a good few thousand miles away. closest case was probably, I don't know, maybe 4,000 miles, maybe more. There hasn't been any sign of Ebola here in South Africa. Knock on wood, touch wood, cross fingers and hold thumbs. A big front moving in from Mozambique, coming in over Kruger towards the northeast. We're starting to get a few drops again, but I don't think it'll be too bad. I hate giving up on leopard tracks, but I can't find any sign of him. He's probably in that drainage line. He certainly didn't go anywhere after or anywhere close to the dam. Didn't cross any other roads or walk on any other roads. So no news from anyone regarding the Djuma waterhole camera and anything spotted last night, so I take it there wasn't much. You can actually smell all this jasmine still. It's drizzling again. Back to that question about feeling unease with buffalo or leopard or wild dog. As I was saying, wild dog are not really a threat to humans. Wild dog are notorious for being quite vicious hunting animals, but they are not known to be aggressive towards humans. Well, they've been aggressive. They bark, not bark like a dog, but they do have an alarm bark, and they do show concern towards humans, especially on foot. They ignore us when we're in the vehicle. So yeah, I suppose buffalo, it's quite a little bit uneasy, especially if buffalo really close to the vehicle, because he can, in the blink of an eye, he can ram the vehicle. Doesn't happen often. I don't know of, well no, I do, one or two incidents, but that's where somebody has been a little bit too overzealous with the buffalo, trying to move them along, getting impatient. Sometimes it can be a little bit heart beating, heart racingly, what's the word? Well, it can get the heart beating being close to lion, especially big male lion, sitting close to the vehicle and looking up at you, and the ears are a little bit flat towards the back, and the tail starts thrashing a little bit. And if you know cat language, you know that you might be in trouble. It's one thing to be sitting next to lion that are relaxed, but it's another thing entirely. And I suppose leopard, for that matter, sitting with them, they can be a little bit aggressive or bad-tempered, and it's easy enough to read a cat when they're in that mood. You don't know what a cat's going to do next. The thing with most animals is they can't, first of all, can't afford to be injured, but they don't want to force the hand of something that they don't know how it's going to react, either by attacking the vehicle or people on it. Self-preservation tells an animal to maybe refrain from doing things that it doesn't know what the outcome will be. Not always. Sometimes attack is the best form of defense, and an animal will not really care what the outcome is. It feels necessary. Feels it necessary. Come, Franklin, your mate's gone off already. We'll go off the road too. I'm giving you a chance now. There you go. Bye-bye. There's very, very high cloud. There's hardly any cloud that could be bringing this rain. Back here, I think, or just further back, that we saw that young male yesterday killing something small daco or a scrub hare. But that might have been his tracks going up towards Treehouse Dam, all his brothers. Beth from Boston. I was listening to Boston last night. Actually, thinking about Boston. Beth in Boston wanting to know if I grew up down here in the Lowveld, and did I grow up wanting to be a guide? No and no. I guess I didn't really grow up here. I was brought down to the Lowveld as a kid for long weekends and all our school holidays, vacations, because of having a little spot up in the Timbervark. It was always but I went to school up on the Highveld, lived in a little town up on the Highveld as a kid, and I suppose that I always wanted. No, I don't suppose it's not that I always wanted to be a game ranger. In fact, growing up, there wasn't any such thing. I mean, there was in the sense of the ranges in the Kruger Park, but it was so far removed from the way I grew up. It was almost the culture that I grew up in. It was, there it is, there's a leopard, there's a leopard, there's a leopard. Oh wow, that's not the same one who we saw the tracks of. Might be his brother. Don't go down into the drainage line, child. See, I don't want to race towards the leopard to get it. No, hopefully we're not going to lose this child. There he goes, onto the dam wall. I knew that I had to do something with nature. I mean, I've been obsessed with nature all my life. But I'll get back to that question another time, because now we've got a leopard. We're here at Djuma waterhole. Oh my. They're just spraying a little bit, the little boy. Okay, I don't know who's zooming at the moment, but if you can get a message to whoever's zooming. come along to bring the camera around this way. Sometimes it pays off to just amble along slowly, jumping up, pulling down guarri branches to spray. Monkeys are starting to shout up towards the lodge, towards Boyatela Lodge. The monkeys are making a noise. The geese are now starting to make a noise. They've seen him and they're taking their goslings onto the water. Doing a lot of spraying. So let's see who's first with an ID. VM already given me an ID. Let me know the first one that comes through on Twitter. Hashtag Safari Live. Which cat is this, folks? You can see also, you can see the rain starting to fall again now on the surface of the dam. I'm going to have to idle along in low rain because he's walking so slowly. Okay geese, I got it. You can stop honking now. I've got it. The water thickneys are shouting at him. They're going to actually come up onto the dam wall probably after him. So yelling verbal abuse. They must have a nest down here. Okay, still waiting for Twitter to update. Any questions at WildEarthTV, or rather any answers? Anybody want to hazard a guess which leopard this is? Timing is everything. Timing is everything. Hope he's not going to do the same thing he did yesterday. It is the same. Meringue Kunyan, but Anne and someone else on Twitter saying quarantine mail. Are you going to climb that tree for us, Boyki? Come on, it's a lovely tree. Look at that. That marula tree is made for a leopard. He heard me. But the monkey's shouting at him. There's no need for him to be stealthy, or he can be out in the open. He's been seen. The whole world knows he's here. We're going to follow him. He's clearly moving around, scent marking. Not necessarily territorial. Might just be a message for his extended family, his mother, his father, his brother. He might just be cruising the road, or is we going off-road now? Yep, off-road. VM also seems to think quarantine mail. I don't know them that well yet, so I'll go with quarantine mail. now we've got to try and get through here. So I'm starting to think Djuma. We haven't had a good look at them from the front yet. I'm trying to keep up with them. It's not too bad. As we sort of go up the slope, we go and past these silver leaf terminalias, these silver cluster leaf. It gets a little bit more sandy and maybe a bit more open. It's a matter of being able to weave my way through here and still keep him in sight. Okay, starting to probably Djuma. Hey, it can't go that way. See if we can get around here. That's going to be a big tree stump there. Monkey orange doesn't get thicker, stands of small monkey orange that makes things difficult. Oh, thought that might happen. Taking us for a wild ride. Sorry about the water. Maybe he's taking us. He seems to be on a mission. He knows where he's going. He's heading in a straight line. I'm the one that has to weave, bob and weave. There's a termite mound here. Maybe he's going to climb up this termite mound for us. Might even be taking it. The only way to get further on is to go right at the base of the mound, and that might be a little bit too close to him, but it'll also put Jason a little bit sort of slightly below him. There's some impala up ahead that are already starting to alarm. Using this termite mound as a vantage point, I think I need to get around the other side, because if he carries on moving the other side, I need to be there. Yeah. There we go. Get a good look at his face now. We'll be able to tell for sure who he is. picking up the scent of someone else, whether it's another leopard or something else. Hello, little boy. Let's see, it's a kind of a heart-stopping moment like that when he's so close to the vehicle and he looks up at you, and there's no intent in the eye. It's just an incredible feeling when a leopard is walking straight towards you and he looks up straight into your eyes. Absolutely incredible. Now, this is going to be awkward. A lot of tree stumps. A lot of monkey orange. Getting off in a trajectory that's making it a little difficult for me. I'm not seeing any way through other than maybe here. Buffalo. Grabbing my arm. Another termite mound is climbing on top of another mound now. Gosh. Good. It means it gives me a bit of time to try and get around and through. Being on the move as he is now, he could very easily go into a hunt mode. Looks like he's sniffing around for some of the holes in these termite mounds that he's encountering. Okay, time to relax. That's good because I can't get anywhere through here. Maybe I can. No, the dead trees, the dead knobthorn might not be too hard. Not gonna get there, maybe. Climb over this dead tree. No. I don't know how I'm hanging up on that tree trunk. I'm going to have to try and get around this termite. Fortunately, I think he's still up there. He's on his move again. Okay. Jason, if you could try and locate him again while I'm trying to make my way through. There he is. So he's moved. Did it already. Okay. Got it. Get rid of the layer. Saw him. There he is. Thanks, sir. Sorry, Combriton. Make our way to that marula tree. He's aiming for that marula tree. Of course, we're now so deep in this bush, it's going to take us hours to get out of it. That's fine. I don't mind. We're in a fairly large block area. On the ridges of these undulating terrain, deep sandy soils with all these marula trees, tends to open up a little bit easier to maneuver. I think we can just stop for a second and hopefully, so yeah, here we go. Seem to be going up, climbing the top of this one. But unfortunately a bunch of monkey orange again. This burrow, maybe he'll come around to this burrow. Come see this burrow, little boy. Yeah, on this side. I just want to stop. I don't want to. If I go forward, it's going to prevent him from maybe coming around the termite mound. And there is a very big burrow here. And he might climb up. Here we go. Look at that. He's very well now. He's smelling and seeing this burrow right next to us. It's the kind of thing he's been looking at. So he's going to take it easy for a little bit. Should just go and move some of those grasses out of them. Just that one blade of grass in front of his face. Or I could drive forward a little bit. little blade of grass in the face, in front of his face. But rewarded for our patience and perseverance, I guess. And it's remarkable how nature does that. Sometimes in just sitting in one place you see the most amazing things, and it's not always necessary to chase after things and rush around looking for stuff that's never going to show itself. And how often it is that we're just looking at all sorts of little things. One has the lucky break to be in the right place at the right time to see a leopard on the road. If we had been a few seconds late and he had already crossed the damn wall and started walking through the bush where we followed him, we would never have even known. Maybe I would have got a message to say that the Djuma had seen him crossing the damn wall. Zoomies, by the way, are our camera operators, people around the world who have control over the various cameras that we have on waterholes in different parts of the planet. Called zoomies because you are able to pan and tilt and zoom in on different things, and with a high definition digital camera you can pick up some very interesting things with those cameras. I need Hello, Douglas in Connecticut. Douglas wants to know if I made direct eye contact with him when he was right next to me and he looked up at me. I did in a way, Douglas, but not really direct eye contact. Well, eye contact, yes, but not wide open eyes. I call it soften. I soften my eyes, cat's eyes. When you have a domestic cat, or when you know a cat, when it looks at you, it shuts its lids and it looks through closed lids. Softening the eyes is what I call it. And I do that whether I'm on foot or whether I'm in a vehicle. When I have a cat close to me or looking at me, that's what I do. I like to believe that it's a universal language for cats. Yeah, he's just done it now because I looked at him. And what is most amazing about it is when you do look at a cat and they do soften their eyes, it's almost an acknowledgement of it. It's acknowledging that you are making eye contact. And so there's an understanding and an acceptance of the situation, of the status quo. That neither of us are going to do anything to the other, that there's a mutual trust, I guess. Where we are sitting right now, we're far from any roads. We're in a very large, what we call a block, an area that is deep in, it's about equidistant from all the roads around us. And it's almost as though we can imagine that nothing has existed in time other than nature, and we're able to sit with a leopard in the middle of nowhere and enjoy his company. Trying to get comfortable, I guess. Gonna relax for a bit. I'm gonna try and go a little bit forward now, I think. Or maybe we'll just have the Sphinx profile for a little bit. Anything you want to know, folks? We're talking leopards right now here in Djuma Game Reserve, part of the Sabi Sand Game Reserve in South Africa. My name is Mark. My cameraman is Jason. Wim and Scott are in final control. probably green with envy, as I would be if I were there and they were here. And now that we've spent some time with him, can I have a definitive ID, please? And absolutely no doubt who he is ID. For those of you joining us, leopard are highly territorial, and I guess we see leopard as far as the big cats are concerned, leopard we see more than any other. They are given names here in the Sabi Sands. There is a little bit of a familiarity that grows with them having names, but make no mistake, these are wild leopard, born in the wild, born to wild ancestry. They have never known captivity. But they are born to the presence of vehicles, and by being exposed to that from, well, I suppose from a few weeks old, when we see them for the very first time, they take their cues from their mother and how to behave towards or with the vehicles in their presence, and over time they get to learn that even though I'm sitting here and I'm chatting away, he can hear my voice. I'm trying to keep it fairly low and monotonous. It's of no threat to him, it's of no consequence to him. Perhaps it might be a little irritating, who knows, that these vehicles follow them from time to time, but generally it's for brief moments in their day, or rather in their week. Not that they have weeks. Eliza from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Eliza, are the back of the ears soft as lions? I have no idea. Never touched the back of a leopard's ear. But lion's ears are not soft. Lions are actually quite rough. I've only handled lion, darted lion, sleeping lion. I would imagine it's a little soft. Very hard to they look soft. I mean, we look at that belly hair on this little boy when he was, occasionally when he's lying on his side, or you can see a little bit of it in the bottom right of him there. It looks like you just want to touch, just want to rub him on his belly, or of course you've got to get past the claws first and the jaws behind them. One thing that I should mention though is a lot of these wild cats, big cats, you shouldn't really handle them without gloves, without latex gloves. One thing I learned a long time ago with darting lion is that there are bacteria that live on the hair and live on their bodies, largely because of their lifestyle, and especially lion who climb into carcasses and eat really big things. Bacteria that can be quite harmful, if not fatal, to humans. But it's only in darting and collaring exercises that I've ever touched a lion, a wild lion. I haven't ever been in petting zoos. I don't like them. Maybe for bunnies and guinea pigs and goats and things, domestic animals. But for wild animals, some of these wild animal parks where people get their photographs taken with cubs, lion cubs, tiger cubs, and the like, I feel that poor animals are so exploited, and they're put through such misery just for the pleasure of a photograph. He also heard something. Now I do need to actually just mention this on the radio. I hope I'm not going to lose signal. If I do, but I have to just call this in on the radio to let the other guys know if they can copy me, if they can hear me. Let's do a test, see if this is going to work. Stations on Voyatella. Looking at you, Jason. So signal held while I was on the radio. Okay, copied. Sounds like the wild dog further east of Cheetah Cutline. East of Muranini, so that's quite far east. Carol in Chicago. Can the age of a cat be determined by the change of color from pink to dark? I'm assuming we're talking about the nose now. Ordinarily, yes. Ordinarily, the big cats, lion and leopard, start off with pink noses, and as they age, their noses become black. Lion, it's quite a distinctive sequence of aging. At first a few spots, and then blotches, and then 80%, and then totally black over about a 5-year period. I'm just looking at his nose. Ordinarily, being only a 2-year-old leopard, I would imagine that his nose would be a lot pinker than that. Oh wow, look at this, right next to us. This tree full of sour plums. That's why I haven't been seeing sour plums, because the ones next to the road, the plums have all been eaten. We'll get a look at that shortly. I've got a leopard on camera, we don't need to take it off camera just to look at some sour plums growing on a tree. If I could, I would reach for one right now. Trying to just grab me one. Now you could take any of the markings that he has on his face, whether it's the configuration of the spots on his cheek, or even above his left eye, the way the spots all joined together above his left eye on his eyebrow. Could be the number of spots just above the whisker line. We can see the three main whisker lines just above the whisker line. There's a line of spots that is very distinct. In fact, since lion don't have spots, that's one of the easiest ways to identify lion, because they'll retain those spots all their lives. But things like scars and notches in ears will change lion a little bit sometimes, especially when they're younger, before they do gather scars and become very distinctive. Counting the spots above the whisker line is actually the easiest way to identify cats. It could be that big spot, that teardrop shape, or is it an Africa shaped spot in the corner of his eye? So any portion of the face of a leopard you could choose as your own special identifying feature. Of course, then you have to be able to see that area of the face. So often it's nice to have a variety of or key features that help us to identify the different cats. I'm starting to get to know them better now. I would have loved to have seen the two of them together the way I saw Mishu and Nduna growing up, and then after them Shivambalana and Shivinzi, because when they were together, then it was easier to differentiate, but also easier to identify what makes them different. So you would look at the corner of the one leopard's eye and see a particular pattern in the corner of the other one and see how it differed. I mean, that was one of the ways that we could tell Mishu and Nduna apart, was in the corner of the eye, the way the spots joined to form a V for Mishu, and how Nduna sort of formed like a teardrop, a tear line. I suppose he'll be tolerated for a few more months in this area. His father, Mvula, still a very active leopard in the area, and although in many places you might find that a female won't tolerate their previous litter when they have a new litter, we've seen over time how Karula, being the mother that she is, a fantastic cat, has allowed cubs from a previous litter to interact with her new litter, and it would be very interesting to see. Speaking of Karula, the word is that she's been seen up on cheetah plains with suckle marks around her mammaries, around her nipples, which does indicate that she is suckling at the moment. Doesn't necessarily mean that she has a den on cheetah plains. It could be anywhere within even a couple of kilometers radius that she might have just left the cubs and gone hunting there. So it's not a definite thing that that's where they all are. However, being fairly new, her cubs will probably not be moved around very much at the moment, and I guess it might be a while before she might bring them this way. Of course, any day now. Could be any day now. I think if this is the first time she's been seen with suckle marks, and the last time she was seen, which was a couple of weeks ago, this in the interim is when she must have given birth, and she's been in hiding with the new cubs, no doubt. keeping a very low profile. And now that she's out and about, obviously an indicator of the fact that the cubs are probably about 2 weeks maybe, and that she can leave them for slightly longer periods of time. We're not likely to see them until they're maybe 5 or 6 weeks old, and I'm hoping that we'll get that chance. It is going to sound like from between now and then, it's sort of towards the end of our broadcast here at Djuma, so it's going to be cutting it very, very fine. It's going to be a bit of a race at the end to see whether we're going to be able to get a glimpse of her and her cubs before we end this series of live drives. It would be wonderful if we could stay on, especially if she does have new cubs. It would be amazing if we could then watch the progression of this new litter, her 5th litter, and be able to watch them growing up as we have in the past with previous litters. Let's try the radar again. Voyatella. Oops. Western Gary that copies me, my radio is a bit squirrel. I think there's something wrong with this microphone. Any station on Western Gary? Good. A very proud cat. Very beautiful cat. For Pammy for her birthday. A friend of mine from 25 years ago. Pammy's cat for today. It's her birthday. Trying to take photographs, composing the shot exactly the same as this, what a screenshot would be, in case somebody wants to see it. It's not a very high resolution camera, but John in Connecticut wanting to know if how much bigger his father would be. Oh, sorry, I talked too loud there, boyki. John Mvula is much bigger. It's hard to describe. Mvula's shoulders and neck and head it's a lot broader. He's got a very narrow face compared to his father. His face is going to have to fill out over the years. Still got a very youthful face, sort of very narrow cheekbones, but that'll fill up as he grows older, and the masseter muscles, his cheek muscles expand from years of killing and crunching bones. He'll develop a little bit of a dewlap underneath the neck. If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say he's still a lightweight, probably only about, oh, not even 30-40 kilograms, if that. His father's probably already at a weight of about maybe 70. $60, $70. Difference in 7 years between him and his father. His father, I think, turning 10 next year. Was born in 2005. Mvula. Do you think Mvula was about 3 years old when I first met him? No, maybe about 4. I didn't see Mvula for quite a while. I think I didn't see him for the first year that I was here. I didn't see Mvula. He mostly kept to a territory east of Gari, east of the Djuma area. And this area was more another male. The father of Karula's first 2 litters was a leopard by the name of Yambilu Yordan, who I suppose it was his presence that kept Mvula away from this part of the world. And once Yambilu Yordan moved on to leopard heaven, Mvula has now taken over here and fired not only him and his brother, but also this new litter. Actually, Karula's first 3 litters, I think, was Yambilu Yordan. If I'm not mistaken. Cloud is sort of lifting. I don't think we're going to have much more rain today, and clearing up a lot towards the north too. A little bit of blue sky, so I imagine it's going to start getting a little bit warmer, and it's going to send him into some shade rather than out in the open. I guess we're very lucky to have the cloud cover, because by this time of the morning it can be quite hot and can force a leopard into pretty deep shade. We're extremely fortunate to be able to sit with the leopard going into mid-morning. One might hear that leopard are nocturnal, but they are not entirely. They are very much active during the day. I've seen leopard hunting in the heat of the day, and very often you'll find that they're active in the heat of the day because it's the most likely time when lion and hyena are not going to be active, and so that they can move around without, well, I wouldn't say without fear of bumping into lion or hyena, but lethargy tends to make animals a little bit less reluctant to chase or kill. So energy levels get low and tolerance is higher. Making kills in the heat of the day, least likely time of the day to have your kill stolen by the likes of lion and hyena if you're a leopard. especially in areas where there's a fairly large population of both, as there is here. So I still want to know, have we decided if it's Djuma or quarantine? Definitely the quarantine male. Q. Where's your brother, boy? I saw his, that must have been his tracks that we saw up Treehouse Way. Mauricio wants to know what would Mvula do if he came across quarantine or Djuma, his two sons. I think the only one that can answer that question, Mauricio, is Mvula himself. My leopard is a little rusty. I'm not fluent in leopard. But to be serious, it's not an easy question to answer, because we're speaking of a behavioral trait. We're speaking about a dynamic that doesn't have a set of rules, where one day he might accept them, another day he might get aggressive with them. And we've seen that with other males with their sons. There are a whole variety of options or possibilities that could happen. He could ignore him, he could chase him, he could kill him, or I mean Mvula, he could kill one of the sons. Not likely, but they could have a fight. There could be a very serious... It depends on many different things. And mostly, I suppose, it would depend on Mvula's need to move on. They're going to need to move to other areas. Where they go is another matter. They might have to go into maybe Manyaleti. Leopard territories are pretty hard to come by in this part of the world. We're on the top end of the Sabi Sand. We're against the edge of the Kruger National Park. And where some of the youngsters have tried to get over the fence and seek better territories outside, it proves to be detrimental, or it can do, because they're likely to encounter human habitation and domestic stock, which of course is irresistible, especially goats, irresistible to a leopard. You're going to start getting warm soon. I'm starting to get warm. So not really any fixed answer that I could give you of what Mvula would do. And if we were to see him, if it were to happen that he happened to come along right now and there happened to be an interaction, we can't then say that that is how a leopard reacts to his son every time a leopard and a son come together. It's only for that moment, for that time, that they will do what they do on that moment. It'll never be the same, or it's not likely to be a set behavioral pattern every time they do maybe cross paths, which they are bound to do, since they're still within their father's territory. He's been scent marking, and the next time Mvula comes along the dam wall, the next time Mvula is anywhere around the Djuma waterhole or Djuma, the Gari Dam, he's going to pick up the scent of his son, and it will be interesting to see how he reacts just to the presence of the scent. Most likely he will scent over it to establish his dominance. He will... It's not that we'll see him get angry. I mean, it's not like he's going to throw a hissy fit or anything. But I guess it's not even going to be much of an indication of any sort of behavior once they see each other in the fur, when they're face to face. they might be quite amicable. They might get along quite fine. We saw Yambilu Jordan on a Nyala kill in a tambuti tree in the drainage line off of just below us. In fact, if we just went straight down the slope towards the east, we would get to a road that has a lovely riverbed in it, dry riverbed. There's that lovely big jackalberry there, and a beautiful tambuti forest. Tambutis are really beautiful trees. And we saw both Yambilu Jordan and his son in Djuma, if I remember correctly. In Djuma and Yambilu Jordan in the same tambuti tree on the same Nyala kill. There was a little bit of growling, but that's the kind of growling that you would expect when there are two cats on the same kill, whether it's lion or leopard, mother and child, brother and sister. They will compete on a carcass. But there wasn't that much of animosity or that much competition that Yambilu Jordan felt it necessary to get aggressive with his son. There was plenty to go around for the both of them. And the longer we can sit quietly, although we're going to eventually run out of time, I'm sure. Beth in Australia. Evidently Karula has been seen mating with several different leopards. So she's asking, how is it then possible to determine who the sire of the cubs is? I guess it then comes down to whose territory she settles down in with the cubs to raise them. I think that's probably what one could be sure of, because I don't know, but it's not that common as far as I know, that, or maybe it is, that leopards mate with several different mates. As most of the time you'll find that a leopard female, a leopardess, will have her territory will fall within the territory of generally only one male. maybe bordering on or in the home range of others. I guess I'm just assuming that since she's in Mvula's territory, that Mvula's going to be the father of the cubs. And the only way really to tell is to get DNA. That's the only way. And I suppose one could get DNA out of dung, but then the process of extracting DNA from the dung and determining the DNA is a costly and lengthy process. But I was saying, we could sit here and have a leopard sleeping next to us, and it might appear that it's going nowhere and nothing's going to happen. But far too many times, on far too many occasions, I've sat with a cat, and the longer you sit, the more chance there is of the world around you just sagging back into its normal activity, and the insects calling again, birds singing, no more alarm calling, and the likelihood of something coming by, something small enough that a young leopard like this would take an advantage of the situation. He's on a termite mound, he's got a vantage point, he'll be able to see through the bushes things like the little flash of white of Impala's tail, or movement of a duiker or a steenbok. And being on the termite mound give him an opportunity to slink down the back side of it, not be seen, and then stalk from there. So to go from this almost sleeping mode into hunting mode is the blink of an eye. In fact, sometimes it's happened where we become a little bit complacent in a sleep, being with a sleeping leopard, that we aren't ready when the moment happens, and before you know it, it's up and gone, and you can't follow it because you're not ready. So it's important to actually monitor the behavior, monitor the ear movement in particular, because while his eyes are closed, those two little radar dishes are whirling around, listening to every sound. Probably tuning out my voice, tuning out the sound of the bush around us, just waiting for the sound of a twig breaking or a leaf being eaten off of a tree nearby. Any noise that's likely to be a trigger that sends him into hunt mode. Look at that paw. The leopard behavior that we're experiencing here in the Sabi Sand is very unique to this area, because there's a density of leopard as a result of the density of the bush and the numbers of prey species that you find here. Areas where it's a lot more open and maybe drier or different terrain, leopards are far more spread out, territories are a lot bigger. Behavior is completely different. So you can never it always comes down to the same thing time and time again. When we're discussing animals and we're talking about animal behavior, you can't generalize at all. You can observe the behavior of an animal at the moment that you're observing it, and you might observe something similar again. But generally speaking, what we observe in terms of hunting strategies and the kind of day-to-day lives of the leopards here would be very different to, say, in the Serengeti, for example, or the Kalahari in Botswana, or even the difference between leopard behavior in place like Kalahari in Botswana and the Okavango Delta in Botswana. Vastly different habitats that required vastly different behavioral traits, hunting methods, density of game, rainfall, water accessibility. There are all sorts of things that influence the behavior of an individual, and even when you go beyond all of those factors that influence behavior, you've got to remember that they have moods. One day is different to the next. They don't work like clockwork. They don't have a set pattern to what they do, especially being a large mammal that that is constantly interacting with its environment, whether it is inter or intraspecific, whether it is interacting with the same species or other species, whether it's interacting with predators or prey, or avoiding the wrath of certain prey species like baboons, for example, can influence leopard behavior greatly, because trooper baboon are likely to attack a leopard if they can, if they see that they might have the upper hand. I've seen many occasions with baboon mobbing a leopard and the leopard coming off second best. And when you consider that the canines on a baboon far longer and far more deadly than the canines on a leopard, probably equally capable of inflicting a deadly bite. I'm going to need to stand on a termite mound on our way out, maybe see our way out of this. We're in the middle, so I think we've got 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Whether we go to Hills of Cutline or Gowrie Cutline or Mvubu Road, Central Road, whichever we go, we've got a task. John from Connecticut, is he big enough to take down an impala? Yes, I'd say he is. I think it was in Djuma that was about this age when I saw him take down a big impala. I've got a young leopard at home as well that's not much bigger, that I had a couple of months ago killed an adult ram. I had that photograph, I think I put that photo on Facebook. At some point he's going to have to make his first large kill like that of an impala, if he hasn't already. And each time he does, his skill will improve. He's most likely made many attempts by now. By this stage, he's probably been chasing for some time now. Let me just see if excuse me a sec, I want to be on the radio. Texan. Radio's been Skoroko this morning. How you copy me? You copying me? But I'm deep in the block between Central and Gowrie Cutline and Buffels of Cutline. The radio not working too well. East from the dam wall towards Gowrie Cutline, Buffels of Cutline. So I'm very deep in the block from Gowrie Dam. How do you copy me now? East from Gowrie Dam into the block between Gowrie Dam . Radio's not transmitting, but he got the idea. Brenda in Pennsylvania wants to know how big his claws are and how much bigger lion claws are, and will they continue to grow. Well, yes, lion claws are much bigger, Brenda. Lion twice the size of a leopard mostly. Even if lioness will be twice the size of him, twice his weight. So yes, lion claws are a lot bigger. How big are his claws? Well, it's hard to describe, but I'd say probably around the outside of the curve of the claw, probably well over an inch. And they do continue to grow, as he will, and much like your domestic cat, his claws will need resheathing, so that it'll almost be like he'll shed the claw as he grows. How can I explain it? As he scratches on trees and things, the claws flake as they grow, and I don't know, I'm finding it hard to find words this morning to articulate, but yeah, I guess the answer is yes, they will grow and they will continue to grow. They will never quite be as big as a lion, but they're different claws to a lion, because leopard use their claws in climbing, so there's a deeper curve to the claws of a leopard, especially on the front legs. But just like any cat claw, they do grow as the cat grows, continually growing, continually requiring cleaning, sharpening. It's not so much sharpening claws as much as it is getting rid of the sort of the flaky, shedding part of the claw as it grows, the sheath. Don't know how else to describe it. I'm not too sure, didn't quite get the name. How long ago? Still don't get it. Ing. Okay. How long ago were animals introduced to Djuma? Right, no, run me. Oh, it's just a bunch of letters as a name. Just run that whole question by me again. Jeff. How long since they've introduced animals, and why did they have to? Was the land being farmed? I think there's evidence of fences up on Djuma, especially around the area called Quarantine. And the only animals, as far as I know, that were introduced up there were the nyala. The Sabi sand was established back in the 1950s, and in the early 60s rhino were introduced into the Sabi sand because they'd become extinct here. Otherwise all the animals occurred here. No other animals were really introduced in that, and it wasn't right here at Djuma specifically that rhino were introduced. It was in the Sabi sand in general. But 20 years ago, in 1992, when the fences came down with the Kruger National Park, since then, of course, the animals integrated with the populations of the Kruger National Park. in the late 80s, towards the late 80s, we were capturing rhino and translocating them to other reserves. So in the 20 years from the early 60s, when rhino were reintroduced, to the late 80s, when rhino were so numerous that they had to be translocated out of the Sabi Sand prior to its incorporation with Kruger, there was an amazing breeding going on of rhino. They were well protected. In fact, it was a time when there was no poaching in this country. Things have changed dramatically now, and well, it's become a very delicate subject. But since it forms part of the answer, well, here comes the sun, and what's he looking at? He's looking at something. But the sun is going to push him into the shade somewhere, and it'll be time for us to leave him soon. But he's going to start cooking up there in the sun, unless he's seeing something or hearing something. Lovely light coming through his whiskers when he turns his head a little bit. The introduction of species into the Sabi Sand when it was a self-contained reserve was an effort. Yeah, there he goes. I knew. Sun comes out, gets too hot, time to go to the shade. I'm actually going to just let him, well, maybe let's see if we can get around that side. Might not go too far. We've got to start making our way out of this thicket. And I'm thinking that heading east might be the best option. There he is in the shade. Oops. We're just going to say goodbye to him here, and then I'm going to have to try and find another way out. Maybe going around the other side of the termite mound. We've got grasses in the way now. But I'd like to leave him. I'd like to leave him sitting or sleeping or something. I don't want to leave him moving, because I'm going to have to be moving. And I don't want him moving in that direction that he's looking in, because I want to go in that direction. But of course, he's the one that calls the shots. If he's finding something interesting in that direction, I won't be able to head that way. Let's see if I can just get in a position that we don't have the grass in his face. Oops. In a hole. And this is where I sit the whole day, because I'm now sitting in a hole. Well, not me, but the wheel. Nice and cool when the sun goes behind a cloud. There's a very slight breeze blowing, as you can see with the movement of these grass heads. I think this is Rhodes grass, if I'm not mistaken. He's likely to bed down somewhere nearby for the day. I'm not sure if we'll be able to find him again this afternoon. We can certainly try. If I make my way out in one particular direction, I should be able to find my way in on those tracks. I don't think I'm going to be able to follow my tracks back the way we came. I think it's going to be a little bit closer maybe if I go down to another road. So can't guarantee we'll be with him this afternoon. Certainly try my best. I want to thank those of you who've been with me or been with us this morning here on Wild Earth, and hashtag Safari Live, Wild Safari Live. And as he moves away, I'm going to let him go off into the shade to go and have a sleep and say goodbye. Thank you for joining me. My name is Mark. You've been with us here at Djuma Game Reserve. It's been absolutely wonderful presenting for you this morning, being able to do this. From Jason and all of us here and the Spider Wed, bye bye.